I want to come back to what Deputy Kenny started with by the accusation of him and others that they jumped on some kind of a bandwagon and that the accusations of a whitewash, etc., should be withdrawn. I wasn't here for your statement, Minister, but I note that you were asking for Deputies MacDonald, O'Leary, Kenny and McGrath and others to withdraw their statements. It's a kind of peculiar day because earlier on the Taoiseach was looking for us to not ask questions about inquiries that are taking a long time and that people are not happy with in this House. And you are now criticising deputies for making a criticism of a very important oversight body into the justice and so-called guardians of the peace in this country. Now, I don't think it comes out of the blue that people are critical of GSOC. He doesn't talk about himself, but Deputy Kenny was actually complaint #1 to GSOC when it opened. I queued up outside the building on Abbey Street with them, and his complaint was about the behaviour of the Gardaí in Ballinaboy when they picked him up, and literally 4 of them picked him up and dropped him over Ballinaboy Bridge down a 30-foot drop. It was captured by an RTE cameraman. We gave GSOC the DVD. We still have it. We'll probably put it out on social media again to show what we mean. And after waiting a very long time, GSOC came back and said the Gardaí have no case to answer. Now, I think at some point this state is going to have to seriously look at the record of GSOC and the numbers of cases where they've said that the Gardaí have no case to answer. I understand perfectly, as the Minister for Justice, why you try to defend this report from GSOC and the reputation of GSOC. I perfectly understand that. But in doing so, I think you should appreciate the concerns raised by other legitimately elected deputies in this House for legitimate reasons. And I'm asking you to withdraw your remarks about jumping on bandwagons and the behaviour of deputies being inappropriate. I just want to go back to something I talked about the other night when we last discussed this, and that is the question of how the catastrophic failures of the Gardaí from the same division were kind of glossed over as if they, in the report on GSOC, glossed over as if they didn't really even happen. But the other thing that I think needs to be investigated, and this is one thing that the family, and I think anybody sensible in the House wants to look at, is that it wasn't just the Gardaí that were the only agency that failed in this case. It was also the DPP's office, the prosecution services and others. So, for example, every time the family asked, and many of us here represented them over the last few years on the floor of the Dáil, every time the family asked why is the investigation taking so long, they were told it's with GSOC, it's with GSOC, it's with GSOC, and GSOC were also told that the independent review mechanism looked at the case and there was no case to answer. So the case went to GSOC. The independent review mechanism didn't look at the case because they said it's with GSOC, so there's no need to look at it. So I think there's quite a number of questions to be answered here of all of the agencies involved. And it is fair enough that the family asked for this. Interestingly, this morning when we tried to submit our amendment, and I'll just read quickly the original amendment, we stated that we wanted to amend everything after the offences, which was the last line, or the last word in the last line of the Fianna Fáil motion, and to add on that any inquiry should extend into the investigation of how the case was prosecuted and the process to determine the case. That any inquiry should extend to the courts, the probation services and other agencies of the state. Errors and failings are spread across several agencies and can't be dealt with satisfactorily by any established procedure that is designed to focus on only one agency, i.e. the Gardaí Síochána, and that any inquiry should be held in public to restore confidence in the Department of Justice and ensure that the public interest that they are investigating, that they should be seen to be investigated thoroughly, comprehensively and transparently. And after much debate with the Bills Office, our amendment was ruled out of order and got reduced to what you see: ensure that any inquiry should extend to information sharing systems between the Gardaí, the Director of Public Prosecutions and the courts, ensure that any inquiry should extend to information sharing systems within the judicial system, and ensure that any inquiry is held in public to restore public confidence. So there's clearly a very careful monitoring and approach from the department to make sure that no agency is insulted or compromised here. And we are not accusing the DPP or the prosecution services of any wrongdoing, but we are asking that the processes by which they reached their conclusions and intervened on the case should be investigated. What were those processes? Why did they go wrong? And why is it that there are such grave question marks over the whole prosecution case around the killer of Shane O Farrell? And to be honest, it is the very least that the family deserve. And I think we will be doing the state, the system, and the system of justice a justice in order to really thoroughly investigate the processes from beginning to end. If we fail to do that, then absolutely it is a whitewash. It is being glossed over, it is being ignored, and I take the sensitivities of why the Minister should look to protect and endorse the systems around his department, but sometimes, Minister, people go wrong, systems fail, and they are totally inadequate. And it could be a series of incidents that are just coincidental. I doubt it personally, but I think it warrants investigation, and I think it is owed to the family. So whatever the opposition do with all these various amendments, I hope we have a unified approach, and that the very, very least we get out of this is an open public inquiry into the events that led up to the killing of Shane O Farrell.
Thank you very much, Deputy Smith.